Hello, everyone. Welcome back. This is officially, I think we're up to episode 5 now of Frequency Jump. Welcome my co-host guest here, A'HaRa. My name is Alisha Brashay, and we're going to be diving into some more juicy topics that feel very ripe and prime within the collective field right now. I think this is really I feel this sort of really deep within my core as I say it's really the energy that's pulling us through into the new year, but into a new sort of frequency bandwidth, which really is opening up this whole world of co-creational space. Um, this came through, well, this has been coming through for many years. As far back as I can think, we sort of get to points where there is this need to come out of the insular solitude time of kind of that is necessary, and connect with like-minded people, because I think that there is such an advanced acceleration that occurs when you start to connect in with frequency like-minded people, that then starts to create or creating through that co-creation of connection, um, and heart-centered based objective, I guess, or clear focused point of what. And I think we've all had a taste of it. We've all had a vision of it. We've all had a download or a dream or multiple, um, of what reconstructing this new earth based or golden age template really looks like. And it's about community focus. It is about coming together. And through a series of, well, it really started back at just gone over 12, yeah, about 13, 14 months ago. There was this great and energetic gold grid template that grounded. Now, I've been through a few series of gold and grid templates grounding and landing through my body. It's probably the highest frequency that can be held. It's supercharged and it kicks up dust. I'll give it that. It kicks up dust. It lands, it anchors to the body. It's so expansive. It is so co-creative. It holds so much elements of what we're pathing and trying to ground and anchor and create in physicality. But of course, we've got to work with the energetic templates first. And then through a series of downloads throughout May this year of 2024 was very much about entering into this new, what I kept calling is the new co-creational space. I didn't want to call it New Earth. I didn't want to call it anything else, but new co-creational space that I felt was emerging. Um, and I feel like that is the segue or the training wheels to really amp up our skill set, come together to test the waters. And I know through my own experience, and you could probably speak to this, and many of us can speak to this, of trying to come together in co-creation has been clunky, to say the least. Um,
Yeah.
uh, and I think that through many stages and phases, it's testing. And I think what I've witnessed in the practicalities of that occurring is it sets, or it comes in to set, to stabilize, but it always then starts to bring up what is not in coherence within each of the individuals, and then things sucks. And then also there is, I feel, open vessels that create a lot of disturbance or interference can come in and sort of break it apart. But if you're looking at it from the higher perspective, it's always, I think when we start to apply, or people haven't been able to dismantle their own matrix system effectively, and they're still trying to build from the old paradigm, that's where things really start to fall apart in a application of old business models and things like that. And I think what we're moving into is vastly unknown. I mean, we could take fragments from soul memory when these co-creational spaces were quite active. But I think what we're trying to build and construct is a whole new world of its own. So that's my little I'm just trying to think back into like that whole co-creational space, and I was having flickers of, I think one thing that really stands out to me when you're starting to work in and cultivate that space, it really is around a series of so many activations that occur within the dynamics of the people, and people start to blend, maybe not merge, but blend, and there is a shared skill set that then starts to come about within the interaction of people as they start to attune to one another. It's almost like you may have particular uniqueness about you or skill set, and then they do, and each individual does. But as you start to harmonize and blend, each one picks up on that. So it kind of creates a nice cohesion of a melting pot, if you will. So yeah.
Whoa, nice description.
That's my take on it.
Yeah. Oh gosh, this is so good because I think it's where things land for people around the golden frequency, the golden age, the unity consciousness. It's just a concept unless you're able to take action and execute co-creation with other humans.
Mm-hmm.
And a wound that we all have is I don't trust humans. We've all had our trust betrayed in some form, could even be, including a self-betrayal. And so where does all that get put when we're trying to enter co-creation, which the way you described it to me, Alisha, the other day was so perfect. You said in May you were posting about this all the time, going, we have to enter a co-creation creative space in order to enter the Aquarian age or the golden age, whatever. And if we can't do that, if we can't come into that space, we're not going to be able to move forward. And I went, yeah, bingo. That's what I've been saying as well, using, my system with the body types is looking at all the different types of bodies and what their lane is and how they interact when they come together as a team or as in partnership, whatever, to give people clarity about here's what I bring to the table. This is my contribution. What's yours? And where do they intersect? And then it's clean. It's not messy. Because like you said at the start, I thought that was being kind, when you said, co-creation has been, what did you say? Anyway, a bit, well, I was thinking messy.
Yeah.
Messy is putting it lightly, really, because to me, I've made so many errors, so many oversights. I've co-created with lots of people in lots of different scenarios. And I'm so grateful for those mistakes because it has taught me so much in a short period of time, I guess, since I started my business, because that's the context I'm speaking of mostly. But now, interestingly, I come into all of my relationships, even personal relationships, from a co-creative space. But what does that mean? It means that I'm looking at my own shit the whole time, going, where are my walls? What barriers have I created around my heart? Where am I not trusting myself? Where am I projecting? Where am I making up stories to create separation? All these things that go on because our hearts aren't clear and pulsing in their own right without attachment. There's so much attachment in this matrix. All the bodies are just netted up to the eyeballs. We're all trying to scramble our way out of these nets. And there's so much confusion and it's really painful. It's really painful to disentangle the netting around the heart, which is the only way that we're going to come into unity consciousness in a real human form. So that we have an open heart to our fellow humans and a curiosity to see what's possible with each human. Which is what I love about you and I, how we just were sort of put together after this Pluto alignment and this series was born. But that's what I loved is like, oh, she's open. She's had some runs on the board clearly that was obvious around co-creation.
Mm.
Like I said to you, it's like you never want to be someone's first boyfriend or girlfriend because you're going to have to break them in. So I was like, oh, cool. She's coming in open, and we're coming in with open eyes as well.
Mm.
So that was really cool to have that experience of you and I this year, totally separate from each other, didn't know each other, and then having the same experience of got heaps to move forward on, keep getting all this stuff to, release into the world that is valuable and useful for people. It's going to help society into the new world. Can't release it because I've got no co-creation going on. So what's the point in creating on my own anymore? I don't want to do that. So we were both in this kind of, I wouldn't call it inertia, but we're in total downtime around creation.
Yeah.
Sitting on all this stuff, sitting on 12 golden eggs or whatever, and going, oh, I just have to sit and wait until a co-creator arrives. And that's been my process of, what do I need to see in myself? How am I blocking this or someone from coming in to this? And done lots of co-creations in the past, but were they truly balanced and in this state of being of unity? No. So yeah, that's my little intro.
Yeah, and I think for this year, so many people have had such a clearing year, solitude year. I feel like when something erupts and there is this potential for co-creation, you have to align with the frequency that's coming in, and it's a big job. Like, I know many times when that template has hit me, I think, oh goodness, like I am just going to purge like a mofo now. Like I just kind of know, like it's, um, and I think this year perhaps has given a lot of people space, reflection, and grounding, and a lot of clearing to be able to re-access, And so the guidance for me predominantly throughout this year was wrap up what you have started that hasn't been completed. Dot your I's, cross your T's in unfinished projects. Can't honestly say that I've fulfilled that yet, but that's work in progress. But probably since that Pluto alignment, I have been guided to sit in my own co-creational field. And to meditate, to go into the clearest alignment I can, sit in that heart-centered, like almost toroidal field within my heart, recognizing and seeing how expanded it is, how clear, how cluttered it is, and that can change from day to day. And once I feel like I've hit that alignment of unity within myself, I kind of expand that field around me, and I can kind of feel the tentacles, if you will. I can't think of it, the tethers of energy that are kind of going out into the field to see what they can pick up or magnetize in. And I've noticed when I've done that, there has been these, you've popped in, there's people that are popping in. It's not yet really set, but it's like doing the ground energetic work in preparation for whatever it is to come. And I don't know about you, but as we've sort of hit December and throughout this series, and as we move into leading into December solstice, I can feel this ebb and flow from old to new that's kind of traversing back and forward.
Yeah, I like that you talk about the energetics of the co-creative space. I think that's really powerful for people to go, what is my field saying? Which, of course, is a reflection of what's going on internally in the body, the emotional world inside. I know for me, I've had to release so much sadness. It's ongoing. There's just so many layers of sadness, deep sadness about releasing people, releasing an old self, the devastation of what's happening in humanity, what's happened in the past, the looping of that, the looping of suffering, like just all the stuff that gets trapped in the body. And I've learned not to expect an end to that, and that there is no destination. It's just to feel what is there to be felt.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like the mastery is very much at a heart level now, or I want to say heart, a connected heart. And by connected, I mean internally. It's got to be connected to this, and it's got to be connected to the sacral and the base, because otherwise it's out there pulsing and doesn't have any frame of reference. The heart does need the rest there, those other two centers, to come from a complete channel. And I think that people need to be able to see, first of all, the wound around I don't trust other humans. I mean, I hear that all the time. So number one, that's going to be your first block to moving forward, full stop, if moving forward means collaboration.
And also, I want to expand that into connection and relationship too, because I find that throughout at least the last 6 months, a common theme that has been interwoven in a lot of my personal sessions is that a lot of people are in preparation for the connection of a divine partner mat or frequency match type of more love-based relationship. And really, like, it's this process of tuning the heart frequency to be in coherence with that. And so many people yearn for that or want that. But when it comes in, all this shit comes up. So I always say to people, if you feel that that's a path that you're on and you feel like that is something that is awaiting you, get prepared now.
Yeah, that's very good. Yeah, that's a huge topic in itself.
Sorry, yeah.
No, I just went, woo. Yeah, I feel like this whole trust thing has to be questioned, because is it a trust issue or is it about discernment? You know, because the heart does need a discerning eye, you know, to feel protected, and it also needs a base to feel anchored to this plane. So, you know, it's questioning, oh, I don't trust humans. Well, do you trust your discernment of humans? If the answer is yes, then the only issue you've got is a wound, is a betrayal wound, or, you know, and so that needs to be expressed and felt and moved through. So I think it's like getting nuanced around all these human relating things that go on unconsciously or not, but we hit these walls and then we don't question beyond that. So yeah, I just think, man, rabbit hole.
Very much so. I feel like that whole, so many people deeply yearn for that. And I think that's the space that we're really moving into. What it looks like on the physical, I couldn't tell you. You know, I can feel the energy of that, and it's starting to ripen and expand. And I think it will be grassroots. I mean, it has to be. And then that will sort of lead into bigger and bigger. And I think it was around it was April. And then I started writing about April, May, because I could feel like within myself, I was birthing that very specific, very expanded kind of vision of potentiality. And I think that I wasn't alone in that. I have spoken to a handful of people that were kind of receiving the bigger picture download as well. And I think as we start to move into 2025, more people are prepared and ready to then start to make those connections.
Yeah, I agree. There's a lot of groundwork. And I feel like this has to be mentioned too, especially around frequency matches, is there are all different types of frequency matches. So something I've learned is that when I meet someone who is in my frequency band, because there can be a really strong magnetic attraction, but what is that? Often we go to sex, or we go to, you know, or can go to business, or all sorts of directions, right? But it's when it's a really strong magnetism, I've learned to pause and go, what is right relationship with this person? What is the truth of this connection? And then you start to see there's a whole selection of different types of categories, if you like, of frequency matches, and they're all quite nuanced. And that's part of the kaleidoscope of the Aquarian age, is that there's all shades of everything now. And there's nothing wrong with any of them, but do you have the discernment to feel and see what is the truth, rather than going into the wounding of being pulled into that person and not questioning what is the truth?
I think I'm hyper discerning of those very expansive, what's the word you use? Like hyper
Magnetic.
magnetic. I think not always, but I think they can be, there's a reason why that there's such a magnetic explosion or draw. And I feel like not all the time, but a lot of the time it is to play out lessons hard and fast.
Yeah, the more intensity, the greater the the fallout and the learnings. Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
So I've learned over the years to be very mindful, I guess, of that. And I think that's where we exercise our discernment. But I feel like also too, with the exception of like huge betrayals and those things, I think have somewhat of a karmic nature to it, to lack of a better word. But I think up until this point, as so many people moving through various layers of their own process, you can come together, collaborate, not work, or, friendships, relationships. I think we've all been moving through such different we may have the core essence of the same frequency, but because we're constantly jumping around different bandwidths of our own experience, it's been really hard to land and align things that are permanent or stable. A lot of it has been for the optimum of personal development and growth and there's a lot of learning that takes place in that. And I think none of it should be sorry, I've just lost my train of thought. None of it should be frowned upon, or but it's getting us to this point where we can come into a cohesive heart space to collaborate and share co-creative space.
Yeah. And I think it's the antidote to so much that's going on in the field, that's really distracting and traumatizing, stuff going on in the world or even in your life. And yes, there is a time for creation, and a time for destruction or just being passive, not creating. But don't underestimate the power of creativity and creation as an antidote to all sorts of things: depression, health issues, feeling lost, feeling this, that. But the approach is now different. We've all come from a different age where if you wanted to create something, you just go for it. It's not like that now. I've been observing this over the last year or two, and it's starting to really crystallize around seeing kind of different atoms or molecules coming together, as in people gravitating together around a particular idea. And when there's, say, 3 or 4 people who feel really passionate and feel a lot of energy around creating the same thing, then it can get traction. And no one controls that process. It's not in the old paradigm where you were like, okay, here's a business proposition. This is how much I'm going to pay you. Are you interested? Do you want to invest? Whatever. It's so different now. It's an organic process of people being magnetized towards one another around a particular creation. And then when something clicks and they're all in equally, man, the flower just starts to open. So that's the process I'm just observing in my own life, because there's lots of creations that I'm feeling quite strongly in the field that want to come through and be birthed, but I'm not going to birth them. That's how I used to roll. and I was constantly birthing things and creating stuff, just one after the other after the other. But now I just wait and I see who else is feeling that as strongly as I am. Otherwise, I'm the driver.
Mm.
And so I just go, okay, let's see what happens here. So it's more observing the field and the people coming together naturally.
Yeah. Yeah. And it has to be that way. If anything is forced, it feels like it breaks it apart. So it's like, yeah.
Yeah, because that's what happened with you and I. This was not orchestrated. This was not like, it just literally just started and happened after a certain alignment, or the energies were right, you know. And I think that's the way it has to be. And there's a lot of trust in the creation process with that, rather than executing from the mind, which is what we've been indoctrinated into. Write a business plan and take action. You know, it doesn't work anymore. Sorry. Yeah, there's way more mystery coming into the creation process. And I think this is where the feminine energy, the feminine mystery, for lack of a better term, the mystery of creation is starting to infuse into our world more prominently. And hopefully people are really rolling with that and opening up to that more.
Mm. And it also feels to me, or what keeps playing in the back of my mind, is it significantly accelerates the timeline to as
Mm.
co-creational, just the energy that is infused from that, and then the actual creation of whatever it is, whatever projects, or that then starts to ripple, and brings more light consciousness in. I
Mm.
believe that I've always said and seen creation as an extension of your frequency. When you actually, it's what you put into, it's a physical manifestation of your essence and energy. So we need more of that. That was probably the one reason why I started painting all those years ago. Was I had heard something that had stated, like, the best thing that you can do to bring the new world in is to get creative. And
Mm.
I was in a down phase at that time, and I was like, well, I'm not working on anything, but I can daily apply myself to channeling frequencies through art.
Yep.
Yeah.
Creativity and co-creativity. Yeah. And like that, I've been saying that for years, you know, as a business coach, I've been saying the number one skill that is going to be coveted is teamwork.
Mhm.
You can have any other skills, but if you don't have that, like, that's going to be top of the list. The people who are the most awesome team players
Mm.
will win this game now, because everyone is going to want them on their team.
Mhm.
And what makes an awesome team player is you know your lane, you know the limits to what you can offer, and you appreciate and you value and you know how to interweave with other people's contributions. That's the new skill that everyone should, in my opinion, should be cultivating, because it makes you super valuable in society.
Very much so. Very, very much so. One vision that's just popped into mind as we're talking is, like, I've always seen the change of the guard, so to speak, of being in a world that has been predominantly occupied by large corporations and greed and all of that. The way that we start to take our power back is everyone investing in their own businesses, for lack of a better term, taking the power back and really investing in themselves, their skills and abilities, what they have to offer, and then this fusion of collaborational networking between each of them. So everyone stands
Yeah.
individually but together, um, rather than this
Yes.
upward hierarchical structure. It's like a
Flat
more,
ecosystem.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And
Yeah.
so you may be at various stages of that, in your own process, and just speaking to people who are listening, you may be coming into, like, I've had this great idea, I've never sort of implemented that. So you may be at that point, and there's always people that come along the way that can then help. Um, so yeah, I think that's the space that we're kind of feeling and moving into. And no matter where you're at in that, if that's I think that is embedded in the heart of every human being, well, most, um, making this leap forward, so to speak. But yeah, sit in that field, or yeah, pull in a co-creational field, bring it into your body and see how it fits or feels, because straight away, if you're working with that energy, you're going to start to feel the nuances of what's not right or what's not in alignment with that come and
Mm,
rise to the surface.
mm,
And there's this like big plucking or dismantling of old energetic grid systems that I'm seeing so pronounced in individual sessions. So that gives me like a indicator of what's being formulated and what's being reconstructed. People are going through a dismantling process of themselves, their identity, their life. And then this new energetic systems become available for many to then start to build and recreate. And then, as we know, once the energetics are there, the physical then starts.
mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I feel like this is the pivot to the cosmic co-creation point as well,
Let's
because
go. Yeah, let's.
there's a whole other layer of co-creation that needs to happen now. Yeah. Um, Regardless of whether you see other beings or not yet, there are co-creators in the cosmic realms that are orchestrating the plan here. And the more we sort of get on board and the more we open up to that, which usually requires breaking old programs in us, like that are keeping us asleep, the more that they can assist. And I've had some amazing experiences where I have asked for assistance, and they've come in and assisted me, for example, with physical stuff that I couldn't do on my own. Sometimes it was removing implants, other times it's actual health stuff that I'm just like, okay, I don't know how to fix this anymore. I've done what I can. Can you please step in? You know, sometimes they'll take me into a healing chamber. Sometimes they'll actually show me what to do. Sometimes they put me to sleep, do surgery, whatever. Like, so there's a lot of energy and assistance available at our disposal on other planes around co-creation as well. And I sort of see there's the 3D unfolding here, which looks super limited when you go higher and look at the cosmic plan. And when I say cosmic plan, I mean everyone in my zone now pretty much is a player in the cosmic plan. So we're all on the same team, and I can see all the different roles coming together and who's trying to match with who and who's trying to move to a different location and why, and all these things unfolding, but it's all coming from up there. So
Mm,
that is super cool because it feels like now Aquarius is here. It's really far more evident that that's playing out.
yeah, absolutely. I always speak to these times, especially moving into December, something between 12/12 and December solstice is what I have termed in the past highly charged galactic times. I don't know what occurred, but it's like there's this opening or alignment where the veil between dimensional spaces feels very, very thin. People start to have their initial or contact experiences around this time for some reason. I know when mine all first started to happen on a more conscious level, it was literally between those dates. And it was, and so my sense is, especially with all the sightings that have been taking place over the last few weeks, you know, you've only got to look up at a nice clear night sky to, you know, um,
Or look on
and
the news as it happens now,
yeah,
all over the news.
I do believe that we are being prepped and primed for something much greater on that level to start to take place.
Mm.
But to have it done in its integrity without the fear, I have felt and have been saying for a while that what will precede that is many people having their own personal contact experiences.
Mm.
Now, might be a bit controversial, but I believe that vast majority of people are having contact but blanking it out and not being consciously aware of it. And I think that there is a time
Mm.
set into our own timeline, or maybe multiple, where we can then bridge the veil and like pull off the blinders and go, oh, because I think once you start to have that initial contact experience, you look back at your life and you're like, this has been happening, you know, for a lot longer than,
That's one.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
then I was ready to prepare to digest. And I think that's where the true disclosure will really come is through the people. But it feels to
Mm.
me like we're in more advanced stages of leveling up. And I think the implications of having a more open contact brings in a new level of diversity. I mean, I've literally had snippets in and out, of this year of seeing an overlay holographic of what would be the new space that we're transitioning into. And I can tell you that my experience of that even took me by surprise because I was sitting at a lake somewhere where I like to sit and, immerse myself in nature. And boom, I was seeing this holographic play out in front of me. And I knew that was like the threshold of not an overlay, but the getting the glimpse behind the curtain, if you will, into sort of where we're heading into. And I was there by myself. There may be one or two other people in the park, but when that scene opened up, I've spoken about this of some loved ones that have transitioned that are in that space, like they were sitting there, but there were other beings of different races and colors and all sorts of things that were interwoven and walking around. I was like, oh damn, like that's that's pretty out there, but I do think that that's times that we're heading into.
100%. Yeah. So it's like we're kind of in preschool again with all of this stuff because people are going to have to, even though, like you say, it's been happening all our lives and we just blocked it out, they're going to have to learn, oh, these are different types of beings. And this is how I discern, like, what the intention of this being is that's standing in my lounge room or this craft that's outside, like, and how to respond to that. And that's also going to become a new skill that people are going to have to develop. And it definitely requires this to be switched on, but solidly anchored in the channel of the body too. So yeah, I think that this is yeah, we kind of are in preschool again in the Aquarian age. And otherwise, yeah, it could be very chaotic if we don't realize the skills that we have to learn early on and know who to talk to about these things. And yeah, that's why we're doing this series, making it out there and opening some of these topics up for the next year, especially as these things become way more mainstream.
Yeah. And I love the way that you touched on the discernment because I don't think that we necessarily you know, we don't want to open ourselves up because just like humans on earth, not all beings are benevolent. Not all of them have integrity in their agendas. And but you can, if you have a heart-centered space and a navigational skill set within your body, we all do, and that's you know, you can feel the nature of someone's intention.
Mm,
Beyond the words. It's about feeling, not about seeing,
totally.
hearing. So,
Totally.
but
Yeah.
also, I want to bring this up too because I think first time having an experience or any sort of contact is quite jarring for the human experience because we're so bombarded with
Mm,
movies and all this sort of
sure.
propaganda that
Oh.
and it is foreign to our normal 3D lives. So I think there's instinctual fear that comes up initially around it because you just don't know how to place it in your life. So it's about distinguishing, is this a fear
Mm,
raising the alarm of the unknown that's coming up within me, or am I in some sort of threatening situation. Um, so yeah, being able to discern that through your body as well. So
Yeah, and this is where I say to people, fire is so critical now, because fire through the body, heat in the body, creates a protective field around you that is fully anchored in you. No other energy but just you, and anchored into the earth. So when people have a break in their channel, interruption in their channel, so if one of these centers isn't connected or switched on, then you don't have that complete and protective field around the body. And that protective field becomes what you walk through the world as your movie, your reality, so to speak. And nothing can enter that without your permission. So that's not to be underestimated. And it's a process to create that. And we're just going to get stronger and stronger and stronger with intention in creating that. But the fire is what stakes your claim to your body. When the body goes cold or you can't feel, other entities and energies can just come in and go, oh, there's no one home, I'll just move in here. So heat, it's like you put a fire in your home to create warmth and heat up the walls and take up the space. When a house is cold, there's empty, dead space that can be inhabited by other things. It's the same as you light a candle, you know, when you're doing a clearing or whatever. It's to create light. So heat in the body is essential, and that means firing up in your purpose, your creativity, what your version of activism is, you know, what you want to change in the world. What do you stand for? You know, it's got to have some edge to it. It's got to have a bit of grind of what you love and what you hate, and that friction, that's what starts the fire. Friction strikes the match. It doesn't happen without friction. You don't get any fire. So if you don't feel edgy about something, you're not standing for anything. You're just lying down and letting it happen, letting life happen to you, letting energies come in and all of that. So yeah, I think it's a huge thing for people to come into this. It's embodiment, like inhabit your body so nothing else can.
Very well said. Very well said. And I think the calling, soul path, the mission is a beautiful fusion of what has been a huge part of your initiation, something that you feel strongly about, and then bringing the awareness, compassion. I think, you know, and often that can start off in one way and transpire. I know initially what got me going was like my awakening was so brutal that I didn't necessarily want to save people, but I did think that it could be navigated better. So I'm
yeah, same here.
I am going to take my knowledge and my experience and not transpose that, but allow a safer space for people to land, or context or information where people can come to so that they have a reference point. And, you know, think about, you know, I feel like this last 10-year period, 9-year, 10-year period has been so crucial in moving through all of that, that there's so many people primed now because they've gone through a lot of what they've needed to. And now that's what I'm seeing. A lot of people are like, I've been through this, now what? And that, I think, is moving into that next step of the co-creational space, varying degrees.
Yeah, totally. And like we said last video, if you're not fired up yet enough, if you're not feeling that fire, it's not personal enough. That's what creates the edginess for you. Like I said, you know, like the protection of the children, it sets me alight. Like I just start to self-combust with energy around that. And not just children, but humans, protection of other humans and my loved ones. It like, yeah, it's a lot of fire. So, and that can be channeled for good. But if you're not feeling that, it's not close to home enough. And you got to go deeper into, to go for a dig, you know, or ask, call it in to be shown. May not be in the most pleasant way, because sometimes it can be catalytic how these things are shown to us. What really matters to you? What are you going to stand for?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So sorry, I'm just going to take a bit of a U-turn. As we're sort of, perhaps many people are in the process of having their own direct contact experience, and however that looks, it may not be cosmic. Well, it may not be specific ET galactic. They could be having contact with angelic, or like there's different plethora of beings that inhabit and are supporting, that are aspects of us. I believe that we have many dimensional aspects of us that sit in all the different realms and spaces. So it may be just connecting with that. I mean, who knows? But what, if you don't mind sharing, like your own lead up to having your own contact experience and what that looks like, because it can come in so many different forms. I mean, for me personally, I mean, I've always been aware of all this stuff, since a young child, but it was never that personal.
Mm.
Obviously now it looks very, very different. I can view my life in a totally different way, because the things that I thought may have been happening in childhood, I tried to dismiss that as having a wild imagination. Turns out that in some
Yeah.
people was true,
Mm. Mm.
but you didn't have the terminology or language around it. But
Mm.
what, started off for me was a sighting of like undeniable ship, orb, interdimensional ship that just kind of landed near my house one night. um, and then that continued to transpire into having, like, a week later, I came home one night. I had this feeling of being watched, which I've had all my life, but I felt
Mm.
distinctly that I was being watched, and then
Mm.
laid in bed, but there was just such huge frequency running through me, and all of a sudden I could hear the
Mm.
ship buzzing, uh,
Mm.
at the top of my house, and I froze. I froze in fear because I was living alone. I didn't know what to do.
Mm.
My dog wouldn't come in the room, which, at the time my dog was sleeping on my bed. She wouldn't have a bar, wouldn't come anywhere near, like there was definitely stuff that was going on, which now I realize had been going on for longer than that. It was just the time of the reveal. Um, and then bright lights in the room, and then boom, having these experiences, and I'd pick up 12 hours later. What what the F happened? Why do I have marks on my body? Like, and that just sort of continued into a little bit of like unknown of what was truly occurring, even though I had some idea, and then going, show yourselves to it. Show, if you're doing all this stuff, then show me. I don't want these, like, blanked out memories. And yeah, sure enough, there they appeared at 3 o'clock in the morning, and I was satisfied with that. I was like, okay, continue. And it was a lot of frequency, a lot of changes in my energetic field, a lot of
Mm.
adjustment. And I think not for everyone, but a vast majority of people that are having these experiences, there is a lot that is being taken place, that is attuning, adjusting, monitoring. I talk about the monitoring, and I think that that can happen for, both reasons. But, we do have, teams that are not here, boots on the ground, that need to make sure that we are being able to sustain and uphold the mission that we have chosen to come here to fulfill. Sorry,
Yeah.
very lengthy. I asked you a question and then I went into my own ramble.
Um, well, another question we have to come back to, which I know people say to me all the time, is, well, if you're saying that everyone's having these contact experiences overnight or all the time, what are the reasons they don't remember?
Mm-hmm.
So we've got to come back to that, because humans don't realize that they're asleep, and that's why we sleep. Humans are not meant to sleep. We're only meant to rest the body, but don't go to sleep, because as soon as you go to sleep, you're checking out because you don't want to remember. But if you're awake all night and just resting your body, you'd have a whole different experience. So I feel like we're moving into that. So we do have to address that, because I get that all the time.
Mm.
Yeah, but why do you remember and you have these experiences and I don't? Like, why am like they don't know why they're asleep.
Mm.
So, and that again, there's so many points to answer that question, but and one of them is implants. I guess I could go into a lot of detail about my contact, but what I will say is, I think you make a good point. Having contact as a child is so different to having contact as an adult. Because as a child, it's kind of like seeing a cat walk down the street. It's not a big deal really as a kid, but as an adult, when you've been programmed as an adult to think, you've been told that, oh, that wasn't real. What you experienced then, that wasn't real. And then it happens, you go, oh, this is very different, and the fear comes up. So far out. What I will say is that my contact came through a transmission. I think it was about 1,000 or 2,000 words. Bang! I just had to get my computer out. I started typing, and I was channeling a cosmic council, and they were prepping me basically for what was to come in 2020 onwards, and it was prolific. It was every single night. I'd get waken up about 2 or 3 in the morning, have to write 1,000 or 2,000 words every single night for 6 weeks straight. And then after that, it kept on for several years, just not every single night, maybe every few nights. So I literally ended up with reams and reams and reams of information. And a lot of it was to do with what my role was, what different people's roles were. That's how I came to understand the cosmic plan that they were there to facilitate. Or that they'd orchestrated through coding in our bodies. So again, that's an entire other video series to go into the stuff that they've shown me around that. But that's how it came for me. I woke up with a stitch the first night, a stitch in the middle of my sleep, which, hello, doesn't happen. And it didn't go away. And I was so uncomfortable that I had to sit up, and I sat up in a huff. And for some unknown reason, I just got out my laptop, and then away it went. I just had my eyes closed and I was typing the next hour, and that was the beginning for me. So, but then I did have beings in my room and things after that. So the key coming for the reason it came at that time of night is because it bypasses the logical brain. Because as soon as you wake up, you're in a sleep state. It's different. Your logical brain hasn't kicked in yet. And so I would immediately grab my computer without thinking. I learned to do that so that I wasn't questioning what they were writing or communicating to me as I was writing. Because if I went into my own brain and went, what the hell are they saying this for? What does this mean? Then it would all stop. So I had to go into that passive state. But certainly there were many, many times where I had so much fear. But what I learned was that a lot of the fear was just this super high frequency laser blue energy coming into my body, dislodging all of my density, which came up as fear. So when I was expressing to certain people in my life about these transmissions, there was so much fear being transmitted at the same time because I was being electrified.
Yeah.
This laser when I was getting the transmission. So I was being upgraded like at such a steep rate every single time I got a transmission. And eventually, like now, it's pretty much nothing. My body's adjusted. But for quite a while, it was like sticking my finger in a socket.
It is. It's electrifying, and it takes a long time for the body to adjust to the stream of consciousness do you feel like there was a part of like cosmic integration that was occurring for you?
Oh, yeah. Because I realized is that the council I was channeling, it took me ages to realize this because it felt like I was channeling this other entity. But I sit on that council now. It's all happening in real time, right? I was only channeling myself in a different dimension, right? And so so it wasn't channeling at all. It was just activating what was already there within me in another aspect. So I think that's very different to when people are channeling other entities than themselves. That's a whole different kettle of fish to what I'm saying here. Yeah. It
Yeah.
was more remembering of, oh,
Yeah.
yeah, that's me. That's why I came here. This is what I'm doing. Get focused.
A cosmic awakening erupted to,
Mm,
remember your mission ultimately. Yeah. I can
yeah.
understand. I can understand that.
Yes. So,
Mm.
should we answer this question around why people don't remember and what makes them asleep? Because I really do I know there's going to be people listening who are like, well, that doesn't happen to me. Why not?
Mm.
And I think, first of all, we should preface this with you and I have both had uh, interference from a young age, I guess, through our different experiences of having procedures or experiments done on us
Mhm.
by humans and other beings. And so that definitely fractures the field to open you up to seeing this stuff. So, I think that should be said first of all. And secondly, I will say that implants have a huge amount to do with this. And why people don't remember and why they stay sleepy is because there is so much etheric metal in the bodies.
Mhm.
And in my view, we are all hooked up. All these human bodies that look like just flesh and organic, we're all hooked up to a mainframe, which is the matrix. And that's how the programming is done of the bodies. So when we talk about leaving the matrix or exiting the sim, you've got to exit that in your body first, which means dissolving or removing the implants. And there's like a plethora of implants. It's just off the charts how many different types there are. And people asking from our previous videos, what does an implant look like? Well, can look like anything. Can look like a car part or a robotic spider, like or a piece or a motherboard from a computer or or anything. But the nature of an implant versus an entity, because many people have seen entities and dark things like parasites and pulling octopus out and stuff like that, is implants actually have a program to them. So they're not just a thought form that has attached.
Mm.
They're a programmed, I guess, robotic or tech component to them that
Mhm.
is inserted into the body to just run
Mm.
on a circuit.
Yeah.
And it creates,
Stabilized in a loop.
yeah, like looping, and it creates profound interference. And like I said previously, a lot of the time when people are having persistent pain, it's because there's an implant in the way.
Mm.
And
Mm.
until you pull out that implant, the energy can't flow in the body. So this is where I think people who are working with bodies and health providers and stuff need to understand what's going on.
And I think probably also good to highlight too, at least from my perspective, is that implants come in physical and non-physical form. Uh,
Yes.
so when we're talking about like data chips in the body, like this is more etheric. I mean, it can be physical as well. Those, you can, I still have one that I've been able to
Yeah.
deactivate, but I physically still have one in my foot.
Mm.
As opposed to, the ones that we spoke about in the sacral are more etheric based nature, but it's ingrained within the energetic system that keeps you on a loop. So every time you get into a point of expansion to move beyond the threshold of, it like snaps you back in
Mm.
and it keeps you in that perpetual loop. But they all have different functionality to them.
Absolutely. And good point. Yeah. Yeah. And the physical implants as well can be positive sometimes, and they can just be inserted for a time to perform a function, and then they will dissolve naturally or they'll be removed.
Mm-hmm.
Not all implants are bad, but mostly the ones I've seen are a form of interference, so that the organic body can't actually expand. Humans should be much bigger than what we are, but we've got so much metal in us that the bodies are so contracted
Mm.
and contorted. And you can see it in the posture, you can see it all sorts of ways. But yeah, and there's heaps head in the brain,
Mm,
obviously,
huge. Yeah,
to
that's
control our thoughts and to transmit invisible thought forms into our brains, and these receivers say, yep, okay, got it. So our brains aren't even our own,
I was going to say,
so there's,
I would say
until you start to see the extent of the body,
mm,
like,
six. I'm actually holding a journey, which is probably going to already be completed by the time this video goes out, perhaps. But you can always get the replay. I've had a taste because that's sort of my mission at the moment is to clean up the all the etheric implants and the structural energetic system of the matrix that's not, I'm not talking I'm talking within us that we can then jump beyond. Um, and
mm,
I've had a taste of that because I've been working directly with te techniques and in my own process. Um, I would say that the vast majority of thought form that people have, 80% is probably not yours. And that's a pretty scary thought. Um,
mm,
and I was seeing the potential of when that's removed, this like sort of gold frequency liquid that then starts to come in that then takes up that space. Because the way I've always worked and said is if you're going to remove something, make sure you put something back in its place that is of a better quality. Otherwise, you don't want to create or have open spaces because something else can then occupy that space. Um, and
mm,
so it was really beautiful to see this sort of gold frequency then start to bloom and blossom in the almost like the I don't know, in the brain, and the
mm.
expansiveness that comes with that. So I think that's a potential that we can all tap into. It's not limited by any means.
Yeah.
Mm. Mm. So much.
Mm, heaps. Mm.
So as we pause just for a moment, I'm noticing my internet's really starting to glitch now. Um, I would love to hear people's experiences in the comment section if they are going through some sort of a
Mm.
cosmic alignment or integration, how they feel about the co-creative space. Final thoughts for you, A'HaRa? Like,
I feel like every topic we touch on is a series in itself, and that is quite challenging because to skim over the top of a lot of these categories, because I think there's a whole schooling involved, or whatever you want to call it, unschooling, remembering. I prefer that word because we all know how to do this stuff.
mm,
Um, and we all help each other to remember what we already know. So we don't need to be schooled by anyone outside of us, but we do need the complements of other people's superpowers.
mm, mm,
And I think that's, to me, the most salient thing out of, like, takeaway out of this entire series. If people walk away with nothing but this, find your co-creators,
mm,
learn how to weave your powers together, get clear in what your contribution is to any group or partnership that you enter, and see every partnership or coming together of humans as a co-creation.
mm,
And so we have the potential to be co-creating with every single person, especially if they're in the same frequency band. It's actually very natural, the natural unfolding when we're open.
mm,
And yeah, like I said at the start, you have this beautiful openness around this, Alisha. And if everyone comes into contact with others in the same way and like open to exploring what is here,
Mm.
and no one's controlling it. It's just listening. What's the creation trying to come through here?
Mm.
And then you can have more fun because you're just weaving in and out of that, and your energies just flow together. So I think that's the bottom line for me.
Mm.
But yeah, I would love to hear what people want in the last video. We're doing one more.
Yeah, one more. So
Um,
throw your
who
topics.
knows what it will be about?
We don't know yet, but open to feedback or suggestions. So thank you so much for being here and co-creating in this series, in this episode. Thank you everyone for being here and watching. I'd love to hear what you have to share in the comment section. Until we get to our finale of Frequency Jump, we will see you in the
Yeah.
next episode. Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.